This week, the government released the new budget on how they're going to be spending the billions and billions of pounds. This budget, which included more free childcare, funnily enough, wasn't in the news that much, but what did you make of it?
Well, I just feel like the government is so bad at communicating its agenda. I think I was reading an article today, I can't remember which newspaper, but like the government is trying to encourage people to have more babies because Britain is in a demographic crisis, and I think we were hit hard and it got exposed during COVID.
A lot of countries were, weren't they?
Well, most developed countries or Western countries, but Britain more acutely because our average population is going up. It's not as bad as Japan yet, where the average age is 74, 75, whereas we are at the average age of 50. So our workforce is dwindling. And it's good that the Rishi Sunak government has taken that into account and tried to encourage like people to have more kids, because we do need to recover the demographic crisis.
What do you think of the new budget as a whole?
Of the new budget, it's still, to me, it feels like they're still trying to focus on the rich, and they're still trying to go and give, they have increased taxes. They have brought in stealth taxes, so many stealth taxes, whereas they've increased corporation taxes
6%.
6%,
Yeah, from 19% to 25%.
And given petty leverages or petty allowances, which will still hit the corporations so much because that allowances won't cover for the tax rise.
Do you think what they're trying to do is hit businesses and hit the people at the top, and then but all the people, all the other people, individual people, like give them free childcare and appease them?
Well, I don't see how they are doing that, because if you are increasing taxes, at the end of the day, free childcare, the people will still have to pay for it. So they're saying, okay, we are giving you free things, but still taking it back more than what they're giving. And I understand that there is a need to stabilize the economy, there is a need to improve the treasury and all of that. But like just today I was reading on how high income of household income leads to more economic growth, because the more your household income is, the more those households will invest into the economy, will buy things, will invest into properties. And Britain is a safe country, so the way the government is behaving, it's as if, oh my god, there will be a capital flight if we reduce taxes or increase taxes. We won't do that. This is a very safe country. So I think the government, the one thing I'll give credit where credit is due, the government is trying to address the demographic issue with the budget here to an extent, which they should have just come out and said. I think British people at this point of politics wants more honesty rather than these subtleties. But also I think they have, like, the whole budget seems like I'm a low tax person. I believe in low tax and more opportunity for small businesses, whereas the government has gone to a total different route. And the truth is, today there is no center right party in Britain, like reform, whatever you call it, but there is center left Tories and then center left Labour. There is no center right parties, and the Tories have betrayed their moral financial values.
Ivan, what do you think?
Well, growth is stagnant. The IMF has said we're the worst performing country. We will be the worst performing country in the G7
worse than Russia.
Over the next 12 months. We know the inflation problem. We know the cost of living crisis. And to be honest, the main criticism of this budget is that it's not dealing with the scale of the challenge. This country needs to be optimistic and ambitious about its future. It needs to have policies in place to stimulate growth. Of course, it needs to have fair taxes, and that's not about high or low, it needs to be fair. The childcare policy doesn't kick in, by the way, till 2025. Okay, affordable childcare is a massive issue for people whose wages haven't been increased for many, many years, at least helping them with
why
their childcare.
Why do you think they're doing it 2 years in advance?
Well, they're doing it. Why they're doing it? Because obviously they needed a good news story in the budget, and also they'll be able to say in the next general election, vote for us, and this is what you will get. This is what you'll get immediately if you re-elect us. I think that they are also deliberately trying to present themselves as sober and competent and stable and almost boring. After the Boris Johnson, Liz Truss era,
I think they're succeeding.
That is the presentation of the two of them, and that is working with elements of the electorate. I think Shadman and I need to recognise that there is some evidence that there is a feeling amongst the British people, at least we now have a level of stability, of calmness, of maturity that wasn't there previously amongst our leaders. So that's what I think they're trying to reinforce and trying to build. But at the end of the day, people will say to themselves, after these years, am I and my family better off? That's one thing they'll ask. Then they'll say, am I optimistic about the future for myself, my children, perhaps for the care of my elderly parents and grandparents? So those questions are the fundamental questions that will be asked as you get nearer an election. And of course, what Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are hoping is that inflation will come down considerably, which it almost certainly will. It may come down to 2%, it may even be less than 2%. They will claim that as a great political victory.
Yeah.
They'll say that we have delivered some level of recovery. Let us finish the job. Don't risk this recovery with Labour. It's so obvious what the strategy will be. What I think will happen is the polls will narrow. Now, do I think that the gap will completely disappear? I don't believe that will happen, but I do think the polls will narrow. So I think that this is what they're trying to do. And the interesting thing is, of course, the most scornful attacks on this budget, Labour Party's line of attack was, it's not ambitious enough, it's not bold enough, it's managing crisis, it's sticky plasters when we need big ideas, we need big proposals. Yeah. But of course, the biggest critics of the budget were the right wing of the Conservative Party, because they see this as a very high tax. This again, going ahead with a very high tax approach. I mean, let's be clear also that public services virtually featured nowhere. What are they doing about the dismal state of the NHS? And I don't. When I say that, this is from my own personal experience on behalf of family and friends on the front line. It is dismal. The staff are under impossible pressures. Okay, the scale of the challenge is awesome, immense, and there doesn't seem to be any. Never mind an investment plan for the NHS, but reform as well. I've said on your programme many times, I believe the NHS and public services need adequate amounts of investment. And I don't think the NHS is properly funded at the moment because of the scale of the crisis it faces. But it's not just about money. It's also about reforming the way it's managed, the way it's led, the way it's organised, joining up health and social care and housing and all of those services that should come together, right? I'm afraid to say there was virtually nothing on those issues which are of crucial importance. And of course, you've still got all these strikes taking place in the public sector. I've been clear about that all along. There has to be compromise. There's no way any government, could give in to all the demands of all of the unions. That's just not realistic politics, right? Yeah. Or realistic economics, actually, is more important. Okay, but there has to be some level of compromise. And these issues were just kind of left for another day.
I think the other thing is, I agree with Ivan totally. There is no optimism. Every country faces crisis, but we have such a plethora of crises: housing, immigration, NHS, education. Every sector you look at, there is a crisis. And whether it's Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss or David Cameron and I think Osborne or whoever you want to blame, it's the Tory party at the end of the day. You can't at the end of the day differentiate between them because they're coming from the same party, so they have to take some level of blame. And the worst part here is they haven't even apologized for what people are going through. They have no decency to even apologize for the economic hit, for the COVID, all the deaths that has happened. They have never apologized, and I think it just reeks of such incompetence.
I think Shadman's right, but you've got to remember this. Look, Brexit was meant to deliver more money. It said on those buses for the NHS. There's no more money for the NHS. Brexit was the solution to immigration, to out-of-control immigration. Out-of-control immigration has got worse since we left the European Union. Brexit was going to free Britain up to have this free market economy where our trade was going to grow with all these other countries. Our growth is stagnant. So the other problem they've got is what has happened to this big idea of theirs, which was largely a Conservative idea, not exclusively, that Brexit was going to deliver this bright new set of horizons for the country. Now, in their defence, there's been COVID and there's been Ukraine. We have to say that, and it would be entirely disingenuous not to acknowledge that, okay? But those are not the only factors at play here. We've had a situation where you had a government with a very big majority, with lots of goodwill from the public, okay, with a popular Prime Minister, who in 3 years have thrown that all away. Literally thrown it all away. And the British people, there is a fatigue, and there is a sense. You see, I think it's back to this question. Are they on our side? Are they in touch with our everyday concerns? Have they been self-indulgent and focusing on their own internal divisions? Up till now, the answer is yes. I think that Sunak and Hunt are trying to change that perception, and they're starting to have a little bit of success in that.
I'll just touch on something. I'm a hard Brexiteer, and in defense of Brexit, most of the prime ministers since Brexit has been Remainers, or the chancellors have been Remainers. So I don't know if the Brexit opportunities of Brexit have been utilized. Like, I'll give one example, Ivan. Like the nursing crisis that we have a huge nursing shortage.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Just to say, I mean, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and Rishi Sunak were all strong Brexiteers.
Well, Boris Johnson was strong Brexiteer. Liz Truss was a Remainer. Liz Truss campaigned for Remain.
She was on the hard right of the Conservative Party.
But Theresa May was a Remainer. You have to admit. Liz Truss voted openly, campaigned for Remain. Jeremy Hunt is a Remainer. I think the opportunity for Brexit has been lost. One thing, I am a hard Brexiteer for a personal reason, because the way I see it, the fact that when it comes to immigration, legal immigration, people from Commonwealth, you are the Commonwealth Minister, people from the Commonwealth don't get equal rights to the people from EU is a disgrace, is an utter disgrace to the history of and legacy of Britain. Like, my great-grandfather is a World War II veteran. He served in Benghazi and Siege of Alexandria and Battle of El Alamein. And I had to come waiting in a queue. My mother has to come waiting in a queue, whereas a European, a Nazi's granddaughter, can just flash her passport and come through. That is an utter disgrace. Yes, the points-based immigration system does correct it to an extent, but it doesn't give back the respect. At the end of the day, look at the Brexit vote and the campaign. It was a lot about self-esteem and respect. And respect means a lot to people. And I think I'm trying to come back is the Tories in the last 12, 13 years, Brexit or not, especially in the last 3-4 years, have toyed with have literally played with the respect and self-esteem of the British people. And I hope the British people remember that.
Okay, do you mind if I move on?
I mean, just very quickly, I'm not advocating we go back into the European Union. I don't think that's realistic or desirable. That's not my point.
Yeah, you mentioned
my point is that they sold Brexit as this brand new future for our country, this great optimistic new horizons for Britain, and it's the opposite, isn't it? And that is really concerning.